Talking baseball, baseball and the
O's. Welcome back, Birdland, to another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Benny Becker, thrilled as always, gang, to be sitting down here with you, talking Orioles baseball. Have a fantastic episode on our hands, but yet again, as the theme has been so far this season, it's gonna be a little bit of a frustrating one. O-mentum slipping is the name of the episode because these O's keep letting the O-mentum slip away from them. But our topics we're going to be covering today is the last three series these Orioles had. The Cleveland series, the KC series, the Boston series. We're going to touch on slightly. Also, we're going to be talking Trevor Rogers, Gunnar Henderson, Pete Alonso, these stars that really aren't playing up to their level. Also, some fantastic guys in the depths of this team, whether it be Leody Taveras, Uncle Rico Garcia. We're going to talk about the reinforcements coming back from injuries and a whole lot more, gang. So, we are about to jump into this episode, but before we do, I just want to get out of the way. The past couple weeks, we've been doing a little bit of a spring cleaning, if you will, having a little spring break over here talking Orioles baseball. That's why the content has been lacking a bit the past couple weeks, but we are back on our regular schedule, so make sure you are checking in to these full episodes every Monday and Thursday on our YouTube at Talkin Orioles Baseball. And we're going to have a lot of original content for the Orioles coming out as well on our TikTok and Instagram at Talkin Orioles Baseball. So stick along for the ride, gang. Come along with us as we take you through this Orioles season and ride with us the entire way through, because I still think we have a great one on our hands. And speaking about great one on our hands, we have today's episode, so let's start with that. Like I said, we're going to be starting at the Cleveland, Kansas City, and Boston series. Yet again, we're recapping three series, but as you know, when we do that, we don't really talk too deeply about any of these series. Kind of just give you the broad takeaways from the games and the series in general. So let's go all the way back to that Cleveland series. It was a 4-game set in Cleveland, and these Orioles did not come to play, dropping 3 of the 4 games in Cleveland. Game 1 was a 4-2 loss where the Orioles were getting 1 hit coming into the 9th inning, down 4-0. The Orioles actually started to rally, getting some hits, getting some runs, ultimately falling short. Like I said, 4-2. Mezek, the Cleveland pitcher that night, was just outstanding. And frankly, if you go back to our last episode, we, in live time, realized we were getting 1 hit and potentially even no hit, we thought, at that point, as we had the game on behind us as we were recording that episode. And we were off the air by the time the O's came back. I had kind of chalked it up as they were about to get 1 hit, maybe 2 hit, but we were dead. These Orioles showed a little life, similar to earlier this year, similar to last year against Yamamoto and the Dodgers, where despite the fact where they didn't have a hit, or in that game had 1 hit in the 9th, they were not quitting on the game and weren't able to pull the comeback tonight, even though the past couple experiences that they've had in that spot, they actually did come back, including that Yamamoto Dodgers game last year. Anyway, on to game 2. Orioles do get their win, their only win of the series, 6-4. However, all of Cleveland's runs, all 4 Cleveland runs, came in the bottom of the 7th. Meanwhile, all 6 of the Orioles' runs came in the top of the 8th. So uneventful the entire game other than those 2 halves of that inning. And luckily, the Orioles were able to get that win. However, still not a pretty victory. Game 3, another loss on the board, 4-2. This game was. The Orioles gave up a 3-run home run in the 5th. Really was the difference maker, again, in a 4-2 game. 3-run home runs make the difference. Orioles on the wrong side of that Earl Weaver special. And in Game 4 of that series, they drop another one, this time 8-4. Orioles got all 4 of their runs in the 5th inning, a trend that just seems to be continuing, gang. It's frustrating that these Orioles seem to get all or most of their runs in 1 or 2 innings of these ball games. And I get it. Sometimes that's baseball, but it just seems like a trend. It's something we're going to touch on later in this episode. The Orioles were shut out the rest of the game other than in that 5th. That game's primary note was the great player for the Cleveland Guardians. I almost said the I word there. Jose Ramirez getting 2 home runs in that game, being the difference maker for the Guardians. As the Orioles then head to Kansas City, where we end up getting the series win. Started off game 1 in a 7-5 slugfest, I want to say in quotations, because it was a slugfest in extra innings. But in regulation, in the 1 through 9, it was not a slugfest. In fact, the Royals were up 1-0 headed into the 9th inning when the O's finally tied it up with 2 outs in the 9th on a Paseo hit. Then the game was tied 2-2 after 11. So both teams, or neither teams I should say, scored in the 10th. Both teams scored 1 run in the 11th. In the 12th inning, the Orioles really broke it open, once again kind of starting on a Paseo hit, knocking in that go-ahead run, and later, Leody Taveras hit a grand slam that at the time just looked like a cherry on top, and by the end of the game, seemed very necessary, as the Orioles nearly then blew it in the bottom of the 12th, not being able to get an out for quite some time, until finally holding on to the victory, only giving up 3 in the 12th, again, finishing that game with a 7-5 win over the Royals. Game 2, lost 6-5. The Orioles put up 3 in the 2nd, 2 in the 8th, giving up 1 in the 3rd, 2 in the 5th, 1 in both the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning to blow that game. Shane Baz was kept in for the beginning of the 7th inning, and you can't help but maybe question that move by Craig Albertnez, not taking the starter out, not going to the bullpen that has been so efficient for him, really, most of the season, if not pretty much all of the season. Unfortunately, that started the Royals' comeback, and like I said, scored not only in that 7th, the 8th, and the 9th, winning that ball game. In Game 3, the Orioles had an 8-6 victory, taking the series in Kansas City. O's put up 2 in the 1st, 6 in the 6th, and then held on for dear life, gang. Like I said, doing the primary of their damage in a single inning yet again, and then just holding on for dear life as KC started to chip away at that lead, but ultimately fell short. Orioles head back to Baltimore on a high note, not only that day, but taking the series in Kansas City. Again, this yo-yo we talked about last episode continues for these Orioles. Taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Just kind of staying in place right now. Series in, series is out. That brings us into the last series against the Red Sox. Orioles wind up taking the first game in monumental fashion. A 10-3 win. Orioles get 20 hits, 6 home runs. The first time an Orioles team has ever had that stat line in a game. 10 runs on the game. You had Adley Rutschman, 2 home runs. Gunnar Henderson leading off for the Orioles, hitting a leadoff home run. Beavers, Paseo, Mayo, the future of these Orioles, coming to play and hitting home runs as the Orioles dominated that Game 1, and it was a beautiful sight. Felt like there was some momentum building after that win. Unfortunately, the O's could not keep that momentum building, as then they lose Game 2, 17-1, gang. 17-1. Now, I will say they were facing Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet, while he has had a little bit of a tough start to his season, is one of baseball's best. And it's one of those things that, frankly, you can't expect to go into a game against Crochet winning that game. Especially if you only score 1 run. You can't expect to win. So, on the other end of it, giving up 17, is it pretty? Absolutely not. Do you want to see it? Absolutely not. But ultimately, it doesn't matter whether you lose the game 2-1 or 17-1. you still get the same credited loss in the standings. So you kind of take that and move forward from it. The unfortunate part, yet again, was Trevor Rogers struggled in that start. It's something we'll touch on later this episode. However, he only got through 1 2/3 innings. Couldn't even escape the second inning. Now, it wasn't horrifically bad, but he just was not able to put batters away. He kept getting batters in these 2-strike counts and not being able to get them put away again. And that ultimately has been the problem the past few starts. Again, we will get into this when we touch on him personally. Ultimately, the Red Sox got 10 of their 17 runs in that 9th inning, starting with Keegan Aiken, who I believe gave up 6 of the 10. And then the Orioles went the position player route. Weston Wilson came in for the rest of the game, giving up 4 in that 9th. That's how the Red Sox wound up with 17. So, certainly, was it a pretty loss at 7-1? No. Yeah, it would have looked prettier than 17-1, but ultimately the 10 runs isn't the worst thing in the world. You don't love seeing it from Keegan Aiken, who that was his first and only appearance so far this season since coming back. But again, a guy just coming back, having a rusty appearance in a game that was already essentially out of hand. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And I'm okay with giving up those 10 runs in the 9th and not really looking at it as this huge, horrible situation. I'm also okay looking at it as going, yeah, you were down 7-1, but you had to face Garrett Crochet for most of the game. If you give up 7 runs in a Garrett Crochet start, you're probably not winning that game. So, again, it could have been 3-1, 7-1, 17-1. Doesn't really matter. It all counts the same. Although the Red Sox did get 17 hits on those 17 runs in that game. Certainly not a good day to be an Oriole or an Orioles fan. In that rubber match game 3, there was some weird news as the Red Sox fired their manager, Alex Cora, coming off of a 17-1 victory. Fired the guy. Literally. At dinner that night. So they had this brand new manager up from AAA. They had a new third base coach. It was set up. There was all this weirdness too. There were all these quotes about guys like Trevor Story wanting to talk to the organization more about their vision and why they did it. And the organization basically saying, no, we're good. Focus on playing. Which, coming into the game, makes you feel like, hey, awesome. This is the time when the Orioles can strike when the iron's hot. They got a weak opponent. Their opponent is not only hindered from losing their manager, but they're also hindered from the organization telling them to basically shut up and play about it. So, there were a lot of bad blood in that Red Sox locker room in that moment with the organization and just this unsureness of where they're going. What the team is going to look like moving forward. And that's when you should have crushed an opponent like the Red Sox. Unfortunately, the Orioles lose that game 5-3, losing the series. O's gave up 3 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th, and their comeback attempt were stifled. They were maybe getting some guys on, putting on a little bit of a comeback run, and that just fell short. The Orioles' magic was not fully there on that Sunday. Red Sox, like I said, fired their manager Alex Cora the night before, coming off of that 17-1 victory. Just baffling decision, despite the fact that they then won that game. The Orioles, on the other hand, now fall to 2 games below 500, yet again, sitting at 13-15 for the season. Not where we wanted to see this team after 28 games, but also not a death sentence, gang. You have teams like the Mets and the Phillies literally not being able to win at all. Losing 10 straight, 8 straight, 10 straight, 12 straight, whatever. That's getting swept by the Rockies at home. Things aren't all that bad for us O's fans right now, even if we're not where we want to be. And that's going to carry us right into our next topic, which is basically the title for the episode, which is O-mentum slipping. because we're going to examine how these Orioles continuously get these moments where it seems like momentum's building and we got some wind beneath our sails. And then it all just comes crashing down, not just a few games later, but seemingly the next day. Every time. O's continue just letting this momentum slip away from them. And really this feeling that they've been treading water all season. And they've had games where, again, you feel like the change is here, it's happening, and we're about to go on a run and be better. After the Jeremiah Jackson game against Arizona on the 13th. After the comeback against Cleveland on the 17th. Now with last Friday's win, 10-3 win against Boston, 10 runs, 6 home runs, 20 hits, you feel like things are rolling. After all 3 of those games, the Orioles have gone on to lose the next 2 games, including where we're sitting at right now. And especially at least 2 of these circumstances, including the last one, those 2 losses were Trevor Rogers and Kyle Bradish starts. The guys that are supposed to be the workhorses of this staff. The aces for us. And unfortunately, both times, they've disappointed in those situations. Really, you have hitters and pitchers right now expressing the frustration and disappointment that has been this season so far for the Orioles. You look at the starters' ERA, 4.56 combined, 23rd in the major leagues. And really, Rogers and Bradish are not helping the case. Like, if you would have told me that coming into the year, I would have said, oh, the middle and back half has been really bad. Especially if you told me, hey, Zach Eflin also gets hurt and you're having to use Brandon Young, Cade Povich, Dean Kramer already this early, and the ERA's there. I'm putting it on the depth pieces probably faltering. Really, it's been the top of the rotation. And we know Chris Bassett started the year horrendously, certainly doesn't help those statistics, and his ERA has started to climb back down to a more normal rate as he kind of has gotten his feet under him, it seems like. Still, we need some better performances, not just by him, but by all of these starters, pretty much. And that's what that 4.56 combined ERA shows you. The defense also is not helping, just being shaky and at times just straight up bad. Whether it be Jeremiah Jackson, we know is not the best glove, but making errors at second. Taylor Ward, who's supposed to be a very good defensive player, misplaying balls that are 95% probability to be caught. Seems like Tyler O'Neill's Gold Glove days might be behind him. Sure, you have guys like Gunnar and Blaze consistently making really nice plays. Kowser has been really nice in the field this year. But as a whole, this defense has just been shaky. And also, I just want to include in that, our 2 star catchers, Rutschman and Basello. I feel like Rushman's been very good. I feel like Basello, especially when it comes to maybe trying to throw guys out to second, just needs to be cleaner. Needs to be simpler, simplify the whole thing. Put the ball on the bag. It's that simple. He's got a cannon of an arm, and I don't want to harp on just him. Again, the defense all over has been horrendous. The one big shining piece of the defense I truly feel this season has been Pete Alonso, which thankfully he's playing defense because, as we'll talk about later, his offense leaves a lot to left to want. Said that horribly, didn't say that properly. Pete Alonso's offense has struggled, to say the least, let's call it, to start this year, but his defense has been outstanding. So that's maybe the one bright spot. Again, Gunnar's played great, and a lot of these guys have shown flashes of playing really good defense or have a history, like Tyler O'Neill, Taylor Ward, of playing really good defense. Gang, we will see. Hopefully the defense works itself out because, again, it has been shaky and certainly has not been helping the case and at times could have potentially cost us a game. with an inning that got away from us where really had you gotten an out when you could have gotten an out instead of making an error, maybe the inning doesn't get so far away from you, which means the game doesn't get so far away from you, which means the struggling offense maybe has more confidence they can come back in that moment. And speaking of the O's offense, it's been very hot or very cold. Look no farther than that Boston series, gang. Truly, the Orioles offense is really hitting or really not hitting. And not only are they doing that throughout the whole game, but specifically in the beginning of the game. In fact, they're just not scoring often in the first inning. They only have 9 first inning runs, and 6 of those 9 were in 2 of the last 4 games. On Wednesday, ending that KC series, and Friday, starting that Boston series. Outside of those 2 games, in the other 26 games, the Orioles have 3 first inning runs. It's horrendous, gang. And that's something that's really putting the Orioles behind the 8 ball. More than just the first inning, the first 3 innings, the Orioles only have 28 runs. Again, 28 runs in 28 games between innings 1 and 3. That's just not going to cut it. Especially when your starting pitchers are not necessarily shutting things down. We talked previously about how the second inning has been really bad for the Orioles so far this season, but really the first 3 innings have been really bad for Orioles starters this season. Combine that with the first 3 innings being really bad for Orioles hitters, and again, you're just playing from behind so often. Also, this team is going long stints without scoring. The type of game where you only score in 1, maybe 2 innings. Or at the very least, the majority of your runs, 6 of the 7 runs, 4 of the 5 runs, come in a single inning. It's great putting up a crooked number. But if you only put up 1 crooked number all game, you can't consistently expect to win in this league. You need to be able to add a little here, add a little there. I don't need you scoring every inning. That'd be nice, but I don't expect it. It's fine to only score in 2 or 3 innings of the game, of some bad games. But ultimately, even the good games seem like they're scoring 6 in the 5th and maybe 1 or 2 throughout the rest of the game. A lot of times coming in a single inning itself. So yeah, maybe you score 8 runs, but you scored 6 in the 5th, 2 in the 8th. Yeah, got the job done. But that's not consistent. You can't consistently count on that. Putting up crooked innings every game. So you need to be able to spread out these runs a bit. Chalk on 1 here, 1 there, 1 there. Before you know it, it added up to those 6 or 8 runs that you need to win the game. It's been a problem, gang. Despite the frustrations of this team and by this team, they are also showing their potential of how good they can be. Look no farther than Friday's 10-3 win against the Red Sox. 10 runs, 20 hits, 6 home runs, good pitching, solid defense. We're showing how good of a team we can be in sporadic moments and sporadic games. It's something we need to be able to piece together on a consistent basis to get where we want to go. Simply put, the O's just need to play more consistent baseball. Better. They need to play more consistently better baseball. It's that simple, gang. And I believe that it's coming, and so does manager Craig Albernaz. Quote, our guys are more than capable of stepping up. And they are. Again, they have shown the signs of this. And yeah, they've kind of treaded water for the first 28 games. 2 games under 500. Not where you want to be. But also not a death sentence, like I said. You have every chance at still making a run at this point. And the more consistently you can play better baseball, the better those chances are going to be that you're going to come out on top. like I said, I expect and truly hope that that consistently comes out soon. Consistency comes out soon. And I also believe that when it does, it's the thing that will catapult this team back towards the top of the standings. You know, right now we're in the muck of it. We're in the dead middle of everything. That's okay right now. We need to be able to start making our run. The Derby's coming up, Preakness coming up. You know, it's okay to not start at the front of the pack. You don't have to lead the entire way. Wire to wire doesn't have to happen. You just gotta stay in the pack for then you to make your push, make your run. That's what these O's have to do. They gotta get their Preakness on. They gotta get their Kentucky Derby on. I don't know, gang. I don't know. I do want to show off real quick, if you can see, the Orioles stained glass encapsulating my iced tea today. Love it. I got a few different ones, different logos. I absolutely love it. Hope you appreciate that. That's why we don't got the Orioles koozie today, because I wanted to show that off. All right, another frustrating part to this Orioles season at this point has been Trevor Rogers. So our next topic is Rogers reeling. He had a 1.89 ERA through his first 3 starts this season. And we know the season that he came off of last year. Absolutely fantastic stuff, and I believe his 18 starts last year. Again, a great start to his season this year. Looked like he had continued the momentum from last season and would continue being one of baseball's most underrated and best starting pitchers, potentially making a run for a Cy Young this year. Now he's had 3 straight tough outings. Like I said, the last of which against Boston, he only got through 1 2/3 innings before being pulled. It was his shortest start since November 17th of 2022. Bad, gang. Certainly his shortest start of his Orioles career, even when he wasn't playing good when he first got here. In fact, his last 3 starts so far this season, he has a 9.53 ERA. He gave up 4 earned runs in 4 2/3 against Arizona, gave up 6 runs, 5 of which earned, in 5 innings against Cleveland, and now only gave up 3, but again, couldn't even get out of the second against Boston in this last start. He's really struggling getting guys out with 2 strikes, because everything else is pretty good, and we're going to touch on that. But when it comes to getting guys out with 2 strikes, his put-away pitch really is his fastball, and at this point, his getaway rate with that fastball is sitting at 13.3%. 130th out of 169 qualified pitchers. And that was before the Boston start. That was before the 11 attempts at getting a guy out with 2 strikes with that fastball. He's just not been able to capitalize on those moments in these last 3 starts, meaning he's not getting out of the innings. Guys are running longer counts on him. They're either getting a walk or getting a hit. And then these innings just kind of spiral on him because he's not able to get those put-away pitches delivered. However, though, his underlying metrics has really been very good. His 4-seam velocity is up on his fastball. And he did generate 9 swing and misses just even in that last start, 5 of which on the fastball. So he's got the swing and miss stuff still working. So it's a little puzzling why it disappears once a guy has 2 strikes on him. Rogers' quote is, quote, "I'm doing a really good job of getting guys to 2 strikes early. The swing and miss is there. Really, though, it's just been, I just really can't get over the hump of getting that 3rd strike." It's Rogers' own quote. And really, if you look at these starts, it's not the whole start is bad. It's really just been one bad inning in each of these 3 starts. You had a 4-run 5th by the Arizona Diamondbacks. You had a 4-run 4th by the Cleveland Guardians. And you had the 3-run 2nd by the Boston Red Sox. Again, he gets pulled before the end of that second inning, so we don't know what potentially he could have done down later that start had he gotten there. Ultimately, though, it's just been one bad inning that gets away from him, again, because he can't get these guys out. He's getting them into 2-strike counts real quick, still. So, those are all good. And another good is the fact that his hard hit rate has been much improved off of last season. Right? Because when you looked at last season, the things that looked slightly like an anomaly was that he was giving up a decently high hard hit rate. And he also was stranding a very high amount, I believe over 80%, maybe 82% of runners who got on. So he was giving up hard hits, allowing guys on, but not allowing those guys to score. Now, it seemed like those two things might move back to the mean, which might cause regression in his numbers. But a lot of these underlying metrics, again, have not regressed. Sure, the allowing guys that are on base to score number has regressed. But again, that's just been in one inning of these 3 starts. The rest of it, his hard hit rate, his chase rate, his velocity, these are all things that are improving. Now, it's tough. I don't know what to say exactly. I don't have the exact reason. I know his command at times has not been on point. I saw that firsthand on opening day. But I really expect these 3 starts to be more a blip in the radar of his season rather than a sign of things to come. Again, you can look at things 2 ways. You can look at some of these numbers and metrics and say they're going to regress back to the mean in a negative way for Rodgers. But then you also look at some of these other metrics and say it looks like he's going to get right back to the guy that we expected him to be. I expected him to be coming into this season. When you listen to what Craig Alpernez has to say, he says, quote, "It's just execution. Just the 2-strike execution and getting to the spots where he needs to get to. To me, that should be something he's going to fix soon." I think Craig Alpernez is optimistic that Trevor Rodgers is going to be able to end these woes, these one-inning woes, these games getting away from him out of nowhere, and get back to the guy that we had for the first 3 starts this year, for the back half of last season, and the guy that I have money on to win a Cy Young. And I promise you, he doesn't need to finish anywhere near the Cy Young. If he helps us win, that's all I care about, gang. But I did think he had a very good chance at Cy Young, and I really still do think he has a chance to be in the conversation for a Cy Young when it's all said and done. And that's why, again, I think that this 3-game stint for Rodgers is just a blip in the radar. I'm not saying it's done come his next start. I'm just saying that we will see where it goes from here. Now, our next topic is something a little happier, a little more joyful, and that is tearing Taveras. And not in a bad way, in a good way, gang. Leody Taveras has now taken this center field gig and really run with it, becoming the Orioles' starting center fielder on an almost everyday basis. His slash line is a batting average of .288, on base of .400, slugging .441 with an OPS of .841. And that stat line is after he's been 0 for 7 in his last 2 games. However, he did walk once in each of those last 2 games when he went 0 for 7. He really got the opportunity because Colton Cowser, like we talked about on last episode, is not delivering. Milkman's not delivering. Cowser has struggled and disappointed. O'Neill hit the DL for a week or 2 on that concussion protocol. So Leody Taveras has been getting these starts, he's getting the opportunity, and he's really run with it. And I understand he's been in baseball for a little while, 7 years now, but he's still only 27 years old, which theoretically could peg him as one of this young Orioles core. And it's funny because he feels like more of a veteran, because he is. He's been around for 7 years. But he has the tools to be a difference maker on this team, and so far, he has been a difference maker. So there's a chance the Orioles got a real gem and a steal in this year's Leody Taveras. And I'm not going to sit here and pound the table and say he needs to now get a contract extension and be here long term and be a part of this young core. But at 27, there's that possibility, gang. There's absolutely that possibility of Leody Taveras being our starting center fielder for the next few years moving forward. Now, I'm not convinced he's going to continue this type of run all season, but it also wouldn't surprise me. Again, this is a guy who's been around a bit, has the experience, and has the tools. Sometimes it all just clicks at a certain time, and as far as baseball prime goes, I always say it's between 27 and 32. He's 27. So maybe he's just entering his prime. And maybe, if nothing more than just for this season, we can get an all-time run by Leody Taveras. Again, not an MVP run, but just a very, very solid role player on this team, taking those everyday center field reps. Don't forget, too, he was on the Rangers team when they won the World Series. He was on the Mariners team last year who lost in the ALCS. So he's been around winning teams. And he's not only added to them, he's added to us. The fact that we have a veteran who has won a World Series, has made multiple runs in these playoffs deep. He has this experience not just during the regular season, but in the postseason, in the World Series. So if he is a guy that we can consistently count on all year to provide us what we've gotten so far, which again, not MVP level, but you want to bat 275, you want to wind up with 15 home runs, you want to wind up with 15 steals, you want to be getting on base, playing really good defense, I can use that guy. You want to have an on base of 400? I can use that guy. Especially come the postseason and World Series if we get there. Who has the experience of being under those bright lights, being in that moment, not being overwhelmed, and letting potentially his best self shine. I'm just going to say it. I could weirdly see Leody Taveras World Series MVP. You know, World Series MVPs, sometimes you get a weird name, a goofy role player name. Leody Taveras World Series MVP kind of has, I don't know, some juice to it. Another beautiful thing is he's taking on a mentor role for Samuel Basallo. They've really become kind of a big brother, little brother situation, taking him under his wing. And it's a great guy to have to help mentor one of our young stars on this Orioles roster. So Leody Taveras, I'll say it, I was wrong. Gang, I'm happy to admit when I was wrong. And if you listen to our episodes towards the end of spring training, I was saying I'd rather have Heston Kjerstad on this roster. Heston then gets hurt. I go, okay, fine, Taveras, I'm fine with it. But his days might be numbered. Gang, I was wrong. I was wrong. I'm happy to say that. I am. Again, I don't care if I'm wrong. I don't care if I lose money. I don't care about none of that if we're winning ball games. So, very happy about how Taveras is tearing it up. Our next topic is going to be Gunnar Homerson. Because Gunnar Henderson this season, it's kind of been a Jekyll and Hyde thing, gang. He's been absolutely mashing home runs. 9 on the season, towards the top of the MLB leaderboard in home runs. But he really hasn't given us much else offensively. Now again, defensively, he's been a gem. I love Gunnar defensively, obviously. This is all about his offensive metrics, this topic. And despite his 9 home runs, Gunnar only has a batting average of .210 and an OBP of .280. And that's coming off of a multi-hit game yesterday. Okay? He only has 25 hits on the season. Again, 9 of which have been home runs. Essentially a third of his hits have been home runs, gang. And we're not talking about a guy who, can't get doubles and can't get singles and can't get triples. We're talking about Gunnar Henderson, who should be using the whole field. And I love the fact that he's trending on a huge home run year. I would just hope that the rest of it comes together a little more. And frankly, Gunnar knows he needs to do a better job at setting the table at the top of the lineup. Quote, I'd like to take some of the responsibility. He's talking about the team's poor start. I'd like to take some of the responsibility. I haven't really been getting on base for the guys behind me. And I feel like to be able to do that, I've just got to keep working my butt off. Nobody's ever said Gunnar Henderson doesn't have a mad work ethic. Gunnar's gonna keep grinding, keep pushing, keep trying to do everything he can to be the best ball player. He's putting in the effort. The results just haven't necessarily been there. But he is holding himself accountable. And again, understanding that he needs to be better for this team to be better. And that's just the reality of it. When you're the best player on the team, you need to be better for your team to be better. Now, he only has 5 extra base hits that aren't home runs. 4 doubles, 1 triple. It's the type of metrics that you expect Gunnar to be towards the top in the league at. And he's kind of been middling at the moment. Again, getting a ton of home runs towards the top of the league in home runs. I would just like to see the doubles and triples also be towards the top of the league. And I do expect Gunnar to get right and start spraying the ball all over the field, not just over the wall. Gunnar has that ability, and he's already, I think, showing a little better ability to slap the ball the other way, still with power, but we saw that just in yesterday's game on his second hit of the day, spraying it into left field on a hard line drive. That's the Gunnar we love. Get balls into gaps, get balls down, get on base, then you can steal bases, you can take advantage of your speed, and the guys behind you in the lineup are going to have an easier time to bat. Because when the guys are coming up with other guys on base, guys in scoring position, they're going to probably get better pitches to hit. And that's something we're going to talk about a little later. First, though, we're going to touch on how reinforcements arrived. With Orioles starting to get a little more healthy, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Adley Rutschman came back and really started right back up where he left off, gang. A 2 home run game by Adley, but also just multi-hit games, getting on base nonstop, really looking like the old Adley Rutschman, and it's a beautiful thing. Honestly, looking like maybe the best version of Adley Rutschman we've ever seen. Part of the reason why I'm in the Adley Rutschman jersey, if you could see the number and name on it behind me. Absolutely love how Adley came back. Tyler O'Neill came back from the concussion after his fainting incident. Andrew Kittredge, Keegan Aiken also back in this bullpen. 2 huge names for the pen. Really much needed for this Orioles team that, again, has kind of just been treading water. We know Adley is a key piece to this team playing well, especially when he's playing as well as he is. Again, your best players playing better are going to make the team better. Adley is one of those guys, and we see it as the Orioles had him from day one in a top spot in this lineup, one of those top 3-4 spots in the lineup where Adley, at his best, should be hitting. The bullpen has been great, but Kittredge and Aiken coming back absolutely will continue to help this bullpen continue be good. Tyler O'Neill, I know a lot of fans are off his bandwagon and have the perception that he's maybe not as good as I think he is and that he's shown in the past when he's healthy. I really think he's going to be a key for this team to start hitting left-handed pitching better once he kind of gets back in rhythm and is able to put his best foot forward. I can't help but think Tyler O'Neill is going to mash left-handed pitching like he's done his whole career. We also have more guys returning around the corner that we're about to touch on. But despite the Orioles' tough start, they've really remained in striking distance and positioned themselves for a run. Like we were talking with the Derby and the you don't have to come right out of the gate being the front horse and leading the entire race. You just have to stay in the middle of the pack and be able to strike when you can. And the Orioles are setting themselves up to strike and make that run down the stretch. And hopefully, well before the stretch of the season. We're talking like within the next week, two, maybe these Orioles start getting back on track. All right, so we're quickly going to touch on some of the current injuries. Like we said, the Orioles have been very injured, got back some reinforcements, but we have more around the corner. Number one, let's start with Jackson Holliday, who we truly thought would absolutely be back already this season. We were pegging it maybe 2 weeks into the season. Obviously, he had to get shut down once, ended up getting shut down again. However, imaging has all come back clean and positive. That is the good news. The bad news is Holliday just doesn't necessarily feel right. His hand just has discomfort. In fact, he thought he broke it again when really, I guess it was a tendon going over a nerve and him just not knowing that feeling. I'm no doctor. I don't know how soon this stuff can get resolved by itself, but certainly that's what we need, is for it to start resolving itself. And unfortunately, it seems like Holliday is on the longer timeline as far as returning from a hamate bone injury. There's at least one, if not a couple guys that suffered the injury right around when he did as well, who will be back sooner than Holliday. But hopefully he begins his new rehab assignment soon. And still, we're expecting him back at this point in mid-May. So we're going to call it 3 weeks. And maybe that's even longer than expected. It might be a week or so into May. I could see that. But let's just say by Preakness Day, Jackson Holliday is back in the lineup. Let's hope. Let's hope everything continues to look positive and be positive, despite maybe it not feeling the most positive at the moment. Another guy that can get added to this bullpen, despite Kittredge and Aiken, who also came back, is Dietrich Enns, who was the top lefty in the pen before that nasty foot infection landed him on the IL. Certainly seems to have cleared itself up. He's already made 3 rehab appearances, and he's slated to most likely come back this week, potentially as soon as tomorrow. Elias had a quote saying, "It's more like days than weeks, hopefully." So, as long as everything stays on track, we should see Dietrich Enns back with the Orioles this week. And I would expect Grant Wolfram to be the guy that gets be the odd man out from the bullpen when Enns returns. Dean Kramer also landed on the IL with a right quad strain. Dean has actually looked pretty solid for the Orioles so far this season, despite typically being atrocious in the month of April. Seems like maybe he's fixed some of whatever issues were causing those slow starts. Unfortunately, though, got the quad strain in between starts doing his conditioning drills. The injury certainly isn't the end of the world, but it definitely sounds like it's going to take some time to get him back. The O's are going to keep his arm in shape, keep throwing, because it seems like the quad's not really bothered too much when he's throwing, and certainly not getting hurt worse when he throws. Mike Elias said, quote, "several weeks to say the least." So it doesn't necessarily sound great, but I will say it's not necessarily the most key guy to get back quickly. Brandon Young has performed very well in his start so far. Cade Povich also performed very well when he's been up. So I'm very happy with one of those two guys taking these starts when that 5th spot rolls around, at least until Dean Kramer gets back. Now, a couple other guys definitely farther down the road as far as impact to the Major League club would be Heston Kjerstad, who's still recovering from that hamstring strain. He's been participating in full baseball activities and a rehab assignment should be right around the corner. However, even when he fully rehabs and is ready to, let's say, join the major league team, he probably won't join the major league team unless something happens because, frankly, it's just a crowded outfield, gang. And I don't know who they possibly would send down right now. Now, history says Tyler O'Neill will probably wind up on the injured list again, so that is the natural time that you would expect if that happens. Heston Kjerstad would come up if healthy. We'll see. We've talked about, floated the idea around that maybe Colton Cowser needs to get sent down to the minors to work some things out. That's a possibility. We'll see, really, gang. But as much as I want Silent J on this team, AAA Norfolk seems to be calling his name once he gets healthy and out there. The next guy is Jordan Westburg, who continues to hit and throw in Sarasota, moving along his rehab process. And unfortunately, there is still no major update. But as Mike Elias said, quote, no news is good news for now. He's not scheduled for a rehab assignment yet, but hopefully in the near future, he might be. And again, to quote Mike Elias, he says, quote, the train kind of continues to move in that expected direction. So again, not the clearest answer, but also kind of being like, hey, seems like everything's progressing to the point where eventually he's going to get to that rehab assignment. I wouldn't expect him any earlier than June, maybe July, if at all we get Jordan Westburg. And still, I can't help but remain optimistic that when he does come back, he might be able to play third base and not just be that DH guy. Because frankly, I think the Orioles would look at their roster right now and say if all he can do is DH, he might as well get the surgery. We'll see. Orioles didn't go that route, and makes me think that third base and second base and playing the field is a real possibility for Jordan Westburg at some point this season, and that is fantastic news considering where we were when this news came out in spring training. Alright, gang, so not as great of a topic by any means. Again, this is a frustrating episode because these Orioles have just been frustrating. Gang, I'd love to have a fun episode where everything is hunky-dory, everything is great, everything is awesome. It's not always the case, gang. Can't always happen that way. And our next topic is going to be how the polar bear is frozen. Pete Alonso certainly struggling to begin his Orioles career. Now, this isn't the most common or uncommon thing. It's pretty common for these players that get big free agent deals on new teams to come in and struggle early. It's a lot of pressure with the contract, the money. It's a new city. It's a new staff. It's new everything. Not only that, but again, Pete Alonso is a first-time father. So you have a lot of different factors kind of weighing in, I believe, on this struggle by Pete Alonso. However, his slash line does not look pretty. Hitting 196 with a 301 on base, 336 slugging, and 637 OPS. Only 3 home runs by the polar bear. He has hit 6 doubles, which is pretty solid, top 30 or so in baseball. But he is coming off of a 1-for-13 series against Boston. Certainly seems to kind of be at a low point, and I'm hoping that this is rock bottom as far as this goes. And I'm certainly not panicking by any means. I believe the offensive production will absolutely come, and he'll break out of that slump soon. We talked earlier this episode about how his defense has kind of been a revelation. It was one of those things when we brought him in there, everybody was like, their offense is fantastic. Defense, is iffy. Pete has worked really hard to get his defense better, and it has shown this season. So at the very least, he's one of the few bright spots defensively for this team. And I have every belief that Pete Alonso will fix things offensively. And if nothing more, his leadership has been felt in the Orioles clubhouse since day one. Craig Albernes has been praising it since spring training, and just yesterday or 2 days ago had an interview where once again he is praising Pete Alonso's leadership Another guy that has a lot of experience and has postseason experience, maybe not to the level Leody Taveras saw success-wise with the team, but Pete Alonso can absolutely add this veteran leadership and has added this veteran leadership to this young Orioles clubhouse. Like I was saying earlier, too, it doesn't help that the top of the lineup really has struggled to get on base. You have Gunnar Henderson very much struggling. Taylor Ward has done great getting on base, and so has Adley Rutschman, who now has been hitting in front of Pete Alonso a lot of days. But to begin the season, Adley was behind Pete, so really Ward was the only guy. Point being, when Gunnar Henderson can get on base more, Pete Alonso is going to start seeing some better pitches. Because between Henderson and Ward getting on base and being on base when Pete Alonso comes up, pitchers can't really pitch around him. You got to be more wary about throwing balls, and you really have to attack the zone more, which is where Pete Alonso is going to do his damage, obviously. Really, Pete came into the year kind of struggling with the breaking ball at first, so he adjusted to that, and now has just been behind on these fastballs. Listen, he's a very proficient professional hitter. He knows his craft, and he's one of these guys that is going to tweak and work on getting this right sooner rather than later. And you know how much he cares and wants to live up to this contract and come through for his teammates. So I think Polar Pete is going to break the ice soon enough and will eventually be a big reason for the surge of this team, the eventual surge of this team, I should say. And I feel he has to be okay at times, just kind of putting the ball in play, not hunting home runs, not trying to put the hardest swing on the ball necessarily, just kind of see the ball, hit the ball, be okay with even a weak line drive into the outfield. And eventually, those home runs will come. I truly feel that, and I think I've seen that in his game already, but I think he just needs to kind of lean into that a little more, get back to his old self, and eventually we will see why the Orioles paid so much money for Pete Alonso, and he was hyped so much. Now, this is going to be one of the funner topics, I think, to talk about, and that's going to be Uncle Rico Garcia. I bet you he can throw it over those mountains. Napoleon Dynamite. Rico Garcia has been absolutely fantastic this season. In his first 11 appearances, he didn't even allow a hit. Now in 13 appearances, he's only given up one hit, one run, because that hit was a home run. Gang, it was incredible, and it was a solo home run at that. Listen to his stat line, gang. In 13 innings pitched, he has 14 Ks, an ERA of 0.69, and a whip of 0.38. Oh, and a batting average against of .025. Unbelievable stuff by Rico Garcia. Faced 44 batters so far this year, only giving up one hit and 4 walks. Really dominating outing. I should say really dominating outings from really an unlikely source. Rico Garcia was questionable to even make this team out of camp. Ended up making the team with some questions about maybe he wasn't the best choice and was only on here because he was out of options. I can't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure he was one of those guys. And hope we can continue to see this level from Rico all season. So, we'll see, gang. I really hope that Rico Garcia can continue this run that he's been on, because he's been a major reason why this team has been so good. It's exciting stuff out of Uncle Rico Garcia, and I might put together a little splice of Napoleon Dynamite on our Instagram and TikTok, so be aware of that. And I apologize for getting on the laptop and typing real quick. I realized that I did not do exact notes on the probable starters or this upcoming series against the Astros. I must have slipped my mind. I apologize about that. However, I got it up in front of me. So, going into this Astros series, the probable starters are going to be Shane Baz getting game 1 against Kai Wei Teng for the Astros. Teng has a 2.16 ERA so far in his season. Looks like he has put together a decent run so far. Game 2 will be Chris Bassett versus Peter Lambert, who has a 3.27 ERA. And Game 3 will be Brandon Young once again, who is 2-0 with a 2.53 ERA. Again, Brandon Young has done fantastic so far. And he's going to go up against Lance McCullers, who's the worst of the bunch with a 6.75 ERA, gang. And when you look at the Astros, they're sitting at 11-18. Certainly have been disappointing to start this season. But they are a very talented team with a lot of talented guys out there. So do not sleep on these Astros. Hopefully, though, the Orioles can get back on the winning track before headed to New York to face the Yankees to begin May. Hopefully, we can close out April on a very positive note, winning at least 2, if not 3. Why do I have the feeling a 3-game sweep could be coming, gang? I feel it. It starts tomorrow. I hope we get it. Anyway, this has been yet another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. Episode 59. O-mentum Slippin. And hopefully the Orioles cannot let the O-mentum continue to slip away, and they can get that O-mentum back and run with it, gang. Alright, so I appreciate you sticking with me, appreciate you watching, absolutely love you all out in Birdland. I appreciate everybody supporting this program, gang. This was Benny Becker with yet another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I'll see you Thursday. Let's go, O's.